Welcome to the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. Each show will be filled with news, interviews, technology, and reviews all about you, the writer. And now here's our host, H.D. Campbell. Welcome to the summer edition of the Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. I'm your host, H.D. Campbell. We continue our series on domestic violence with two very powerful author interviews. The first one is Miss Michelle Green, the CEO and founder of Safe Haven Publications. Then, after our second break, we're going to come back and interview the One Essence, also with Safe Haven Publications. Both women have survived domestic violence to come up and become the great writers, authors they are. So without further ado, after our first break, we'll bring you our interview with Miss Michelle Green.
Domestic violence is an epidemic that can be prevented and can be stopped if enough people take notice and take a stand. This July is Take a Stand Against Domestic Violence in Literature Month. If you are a victim or know a victim, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE and the National Teen Dating Abuse Hotline at 1-866-331-9474. Remember, the victim can be your mother, your sister, your friend, your cousin, and even guys are victims too. If you need help, please call and save a life this month and beyond.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner. As we celebrate July, let's take a stand against Domestic Violence Month here. My first interview is an expanded one with Miss Michelle Green. She'll tell you how she survived abuse to become an author as well as founder of her own publishing company, Safe Haven. Here's the interview. Okay, how are you doing today?
Oh, I am doing well, thank you. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I really can't complain. I'm interviewing you, so it's definitely a good day.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Oh,
That made my day. How about that?
well, that's fine. That is just fine. Well, I want to start off with something light. I want to first ask you how your publishing company Safe Haven came about.
Oh, my publishing company came about because, let me say that I had put together a book of poetry, an anthology of poetry, and short stories that I had written, and I wanted to publish it. And I went to several different publishers that I had found, online. I had sent query letters out and wasn't having much success, except with the publishing companies where I had to pay out a certain fee. I was unknown. Nobody knew me. Nobody wanted to take a chance on me, I guess. And I didn't have a whole lot of money, but I was willing to, and I had almost signed the dotted line on a contract where I would have to pay out like $2,500, and the
Ooh.
thought came, yeah, to publish my book, yeah. I was given all sorts of estimates, and when I looked a little bit further, I didn't do it. I did a little bit more research, and it's like,
Good.
why is it that, first time published, first time authors are having such a rough time, finding a reputable publisher in order to get their work out. And, having to pay thousands of dollars that, we don't have. We're looking to make some money. We're not looking to, uh, put out any money. We were very few of us, I'm sure, have like $2,500 laying around. So I basically started doing some research on self-publishing and decided to form a company and self-publish my book and be a little bit unique rather than, you know, stating that, we're going to give you this and so and this and that for an exorbitant amount of money. It could be tailored to whatever the author needed. Do you need publishing? Do you need, editing and publishing? Do you need editing, publishing, copywriting, the book covers, the whole 9 yards? And to tailor that. And also, I am a staunch advocate against domestic violence and find a way to merge the two. So my first book, called Passion Within, was published through Safe Haven Publishing, my company, in 2007. And it is, like I said, it's a collection of poetry and a short story book excerpts with myself and 5 other authors. And I donate part of the sales, not only from that book, but from any book that's published through Safe Haven, to domestic violence organizations. Most notably, a shelter here in South Carolina called CODA, which is short for Citizens Opposed to Domestic Abuse, which I worked for about 4 years. Being a former victim, and also I started out as a secretary, receptionist, and ended up, before I left, being a case manager.
Okay.
So that's how a Safe Haven was born.
That's cool.
And that is still our goal, not only to help authors who are struggling, don't have a lot of money to spend, put out a good quality book, help them promote the book, give them whatever it is that they need in order for them to be successful, and support victims of domestic violence and child abuse at the same time.
All right. Well, who are some of your authors?
Some of our authors are, let me see, we have Vernon Davis Jr. He is the author of Love is the Beautiful Black Woman. He is also, that was not published through a Safe Haven, but his book, The Emotional Woman, was published on Valentine's Day of 2010. We have Crystal Brooks, who is also an authoress of a poetry book. We have Diana Kane, who is our latest author. She has published a book called Life Expressions. That's also a poetry book. And my novel, my first novel, full-length novel, is called Everybody Plays the Fool. Of course, it's published through it. It's like a crime drama love story. So we have those, and we have some upcoming publications. As a matter of fact, our newest release is actually going to be released on Monday, and that's called The Scenario, by the Ebony Poet and So Imagery, who is a spoken word artist out of Atlanta. We're going to have a book launching party on August the 6th in Atlanta for her. So just watch out for some information regarding that. It's still in the works, and the One Essence will be publishing her book, Mamie's Mayhem, which is the third in the trilogy of memoirs of an ordinary woman, and another book is going to be republished, From Crack to Christ, which is by April Cofield Essex. That will be coming in September, around September, October. We'll be publishing her book, which is her story from being a crack-addicted prostitute on the streets of New York, the suburbs of New York, and is now the coordinator of a prison ministry in the largest prison ministry in Nassau County at the moment. And we have our first series of children's books coming out as part of the Granny Good series. The first book is called It Wasn't Me, It Was Mari B. That will be coming out around the same time frame, and it is a fully done and illustrated book by Sandra Cedric Williams. And we have a lot of exciting, projects that are coming up. I'm in the process of my second novel. I've already named it. I'm still, working on it. Called She Could Hear the Silence. It's along the same lines, I guess you could say, as Waiting to Exhale. It's a bunch of friends, about 5 friends, who had very varied lives. They became friends in high school and college, and they get together every other year or so, and have like a little reunion, and this is what happens after one such reunion. About I'd say about 10 years after they started having them. Let's see what else. And we're going to start doing some touring this year. We're planning on doing some touring this year to promote our books more and get the word out about Safe Haven.
Okay. I mean, pretty much. I mean, you got a lot going on, and you have a lot of authors. I think that's great.
Yes. And like I said, I try to keep busy, try to keep, moving forward.
Sounds like it. That's cool.
And I still work a full-time job. I'm still a mom to 3 girls. I'm divorced, so I'm still trying to get.
Well, actually, hold on, because that's my next question. I'm actually going to ask you. I mean, because see, you're like most of the women I've interviewed. In fact, you're a survivor, which makes it a lot better. Which makes you a lot better. You're a mother, CEO, author, day job. You're doing all this stuff. How do you keep it all together?
It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's very rewarding. It makes for a very rich life. How about that?
All right. I'll take that answer. No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It makes for a very rich life, and in everything that I try to honor God. None of us can do it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Because He knows that we are all imperfect. perfect, and we all need to be broken, and we all need to be subject unto Him. But I give God all the glory. I give Him the honor, because I would not be here. I would not be able to do any of it without Him. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be here without Him. Very few people know that not only am I a former domestic violence victim, I'm also a cancer survivor. I'm a 12-year, as of May 19th of this year,
I
I'm a
didn't know, and
12-year survivor
congratulations.
of cancer, of
Wow,
thyroid cancer.
wow, congratulations. I did not know. That's
Yes, sir.
cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I owe it all to God. I mean, if it wasn't for Him, I, I wouldn't be able to do any of it. I really wouldn't. So I owe
Hmm.
it all. I owe it all to God and His strength and His might.
Well, right now I'm looking at us having a good conversation, but I'm going to have to switch gears over to something a little more serious.
Okay.
And again, the purpose of this interview is to send a positive message. Um, so I'm going to have to start by asking you. Well, first I'm going to, just mention again, you are a survivor of domestic violence.
Yes.
And if there's any question you don't want to answer, just say I decline and we'll move on.
Okay. Not a problem.
Can you tell me how old you were when the violence first started? What was the first act of violence, and what went through your head when it first happened?
Um. Okay. First thing I want to say is that it was gradual. Um. And a lot of us get sucked the uh, into the um, relationship really, really quickly. Um, and I was no different. I was coming off of a divorce, so I was very vulnerable. And I would say that this person more or less, we were in the same industry, in the banking industry, and he more or less swept me off my feet, you know. And we got involved a lot faster uh, than we should have. Um, and that's something that I want to discuss, a little bit later. But it started out as, controlling behavior, more or less, things like, oh, you're going to wear that, oh, you're going to, you mean to tell me that you're going to look like that, or, name calling, um, and then as things, and as you brush things off and and get deeper into it, um, it, be, it's gradual. But I would have to say the first act of physical violence uh, occurred, I would say, about 10, 10 months to almost a year into the relationship.
Okay. And what was the actual first act?
The actual first act was a slap across my face because uh, the phone bill wasn't paid, and we received a disconnect notice. We were living together at the time.
Okay. Well, how long did the abuse last, and how did you get free of it?
I was in the relationship for uh, almost 5 years. I'd say about 4 years and 10 months. Over the course of 4 years, and this is what is it's normal. You get you're abused, um, and you leave, and they promise never to do it again, and then you come back and then you leave. By that time, you're in love. You're trying to please that person because you love them. Um, Let me see. Uh, I've been beaten physically. I've been stabbed with a screwdriver. I've been locked in a room against my will. I've been, um, we've had physical battles. Um, I've been raped at knife point. Um, and I still went back, believe it or not. I went back to him 5 times. The sixth time was the time I left for good, and that was after I was hit in the eye. When I was normally beaten, being that I was working, I was beaten about the body, whereas I could cover it up with clothing, so no one would be able to see uh, the bruising. But the last time was the hit to the eye, and and it actually damaged the cornea of my eye. It kept watering for a long time.
Was it permanent?
Unfortunately, yes, it eventually turned into a condition that I'm currently suffering from now called optic neuritis, where uh, the optic nerve is swollen. So there are periods of time where when the optic nerve swells, where I can literally not see out of that eye. It's like you're holding a tissue in front of it. So I suffer with it to this day.
I'm so sorry.
But it, uh, I try to, reiterate this to, victims that it's not a laughing matter, and that it's not a matter that should be um, hidden. It's not it's something that really should be discussed openly more often, because there are more people out there that are victims, um, that and they should know uh, that they have support. They're not the only ones that's in the predicament. Um, Unfortunately, everybody, I can't say everybody, but most victims suffer in silence because they're ashamed. And I remember feeling very, very alone, very, very ashamed.
But before I ask my next question, I'm gonna say this, and to you and everybody who's gonna be watching this, there is no shame, because really the person who's doing this to you really needs to be ashamed of himself and really needs to pay for what he's done. And if there's anybody listening, I do want everybody to know, as a man, it's not okay. Simply because we're men doesn't mean we have to rule power over any woman. I mean, as I had my interview with D. Lynn the other day, I had to really control my emotions, which is what I'm doing with you now. Because I'm the type of person that if I see it, if I see it, I act, and I need to learn not to act, or I'll end up being the one going to jail, and he'll be the one going free to hurt you again.
Exactly, exactly. And the reason that a lot of us don't leave or don't call the police. You know, everybody said, just call the police, just call the police. And I did that when we were living in New York. I did that. And the police basically told me I had to leave. I wasn't the one that was doing the, violent act. But they're basically saying that they couldn't put him out. They couldn't take him away. I had to leave if I wanted to have a peaceful night. They had to literally see him abuse me for them to take him anywhere. And of course, with him being right there, they weren't going to. He wasn't going to do anything.
That's your justice system at work, huh?
Yeah. That's how it worked at that time. A lot of places have gotten better, but for me, when I was going through it, that's exactly how it worked for me. And
let me ask you.
There's too many places where it still works.
Well, let me ask you this: was this before domestic violence laws got tighter?
Well, yeah, I believe that this was my abuse happened about 18 years ago, and it's still affecting me to this day. So it's not something that ever goes away, and I believe that is one reason why I just choose to be by myself right now. I still have issues, trust issues, as far as relationships are concerned, and I've gotten counseling in order to get, past a certain level, and and children that go through it. Um, they learn what they live, and people don't realize that. I remember going to, this was towards the end, right before I left, I went to him, and I'm like, you don't have to put your hands on me. We're both adults. We can work through our differences, and I wanted to, believe it or not, stay with him, but I also knew I couldn't continue living that way. He said to me that what was good enough for his mother was good enough for me. And that was the first clue that I had that,
Okay,
but
what does that mean? I'm sorry to make cut you off. What does that mean?
That apparently he grew up that way. That apparently his dad was abusive to his mother.
Oh, ignorant, very ignorant. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was my first clue that his mom was that way. I did see that she was very, I guess you would say, jumpy or very much, obedient to what his dad said. When we were visiting, but I'd never dreamed. I thought that it was the way that it was supposed to be. Or the marriage is supposed to be. Not that I think men take it to the extreme. Yes, men are the head of their household, and that is what God, ordained. However, if you're abusive to your wife in any way, then that covering, is removed.
Well, we can. Here's my take.
Mm-hmm.
Men take that head of the household part of the Bible very literally, but they seem to miss the part that says, "Husbands, honor your wives and love your wives, so as God loves the church."
Exactly.
They miss that part.
Exactly. and and the
That's
way
Christ
that
at the church. I'm
and
sorry.
and and you don't abuse the church. You're not gonna you know you're not gonna abuse who you love. And God loves the church, so He's not going to abuse us. So why would you abuse anyone else? And that is correct.
It's
That is
also
so correct. And
right.
there are too many, but there's so many clergy out
Mm-hmm.
there that um, that tell the woman, well, you have to stay with them. You have to find a way to work it out. And being a worker through the shelter that I worked at, I can tell you honestly that I've been to 7 funerals because the woman just would not leave, or she would not leave the relationship alone.
I'm just gonna say a couple things and I'll move on with my questions.
Hmm.
You mentioned relationships and moving on. I want to also talk to. I'm also gonna say a couple things about misconceptions.
Hmm.
People think and that you can just move on. No, you can't. You can't just move on. What you can do, you can move past it, but the past will still be there.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm living proof of that. The past
Hmm.
is still there. The past will always affect you.
Right. Right. So if anyone's telling anyone out there to get over it, then they can move on. One more final thing, and I'll move on with my questions.
Hmm.
If you're a woman out there, because I'm gonna put the number at this part of the interview. If you're a victim out there, here's the number. I'm putting it on the screen right now,
Hmm.
and I'll be putting this number throughout the interview and throughout the show. Just wanted to let you know. My next question for you is, I did ask how you got free of it, right? Already.
How did I get free? A very interesting question. Um, I got free of it by it's hard for me to recount, but it is very important that I get it out. That um, after we had, I think I had told you, that what was good enough for his mother was good enough for me. Um, and I told him, well, I can't live like this anymore. I'm going to leave. And at that point, he became very enraged. He put his hand around my throat, and he told me, if I can't have you, no one is going to have
Selfish. Just crazy, stupid, and selfish. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you. Yeah. So for that particular moment, of course, I stayed, um, but I also began to feel very trapped. I also began to feel like the only way that I was going to get away would be to uh, would be to kill him. To be honest with you, I had gotten to that point um, because they had gotten the love that I was holding and I had held for him started to turn to hate and then finally to rage in a short period of time. And at one point, um, and I was. Have you ever seen the movie The Burning Dead?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I was at that point where I was just, going to. I just felt I couldn't get away. No matter what I did, no matter where I went, he was going to find me and he was going to do something. Um, so one night, I had, and it was very rough because I couldn't stand to look at him and him to touch me. And I went to bed with a knife underneath my pillow. And I prayed to God that he wouldn't touch me because I was going to slice him up. I really was. Um, but he didn't touch me. And when he had left for work that morning, I heard three little words in my head. Enough, enough, enough. I know it was God talking. So rather than do that, I got a suitcase, started the no. I made sure that he was at work. I threw some items in a suitcase. I rented a car. I called a girlfriend. Took a leave of absence from work, and at this point, I have to tell you, I was close to being an executive in a bank, a French bank in New York, and I left a extremely well-paying job. It was like the career path. It was what I had gone to school for, and I left. I left it all behind and came to South Carolina, where I am today. And it angered me for a long time that I had left the best job that I'd ever had. You know, I was on a career path, and I'd never made that kind of money or had that kind of how do you say career career satisfaction ever again. However, I'm not locked up somewhere because I hurt somebody that was continually hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
And was able to, go forth and, have, my children and whatnot. But it wasn't been married and divorced again, but I do have to say that, it was all a learning experience and something that, I try to get across to others to not allow themselves to get to that point.
At this point, I want to say it was pretty much so God that saves you, God who pretty much so is the reason you're able to talk about it and give your message to a lot of people. And I want to stop one more time and give the number. The number's going to be right here. It'll be on your screen throughout this interview. Once during the taping of this show.
Yes, and also, I do have a questionnaire that I'd like to read that there are some women and teens that are out there that really don't know, or if they do know that they're in a domestic relationship, that they're in denial. If you know, and I do know, if I can repeat, the
By all means, this is this. I'm just,
the
well, I'm just gonna say this is your interview. So, if you have a questionnaire, if you have any piece of information, by all means, the floor is yours.
okay. For those who may not be watching the interview, but may be listening to the interview, I do want to say that you can get help um, through the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE, which is actually 1-800-799-7233. and the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline, which is 1-866-331-9474. And I want to say that nationally, over 4.5 million women and children and about 875,000 men are abused annually. And almost 20% of those abused die at the hands of their abusers. Okay, it's not just a family matter. It is literally a matter of life and death to some people. I'm not only a survivor of domestic abuse, but I'm also a trained counselor. I have worked in a domestic violence shelter for almost 4 years, first in administration and also as a case manager. So I've seen this issue from both sides of the coin. And if you wish to seek help, or wish to have an escape plan, or you need any type of advice, you can reach me through Safe Haven website, which is www.safehavenpubco.com, or you can email me at Michelle, Michele, at safehavenpubco.com. I do have a questionnaire that may alert some people to the effects or that it may alert them to knowing that they may be in an abusive situation. Do you mind if I put the questions out there?
Not at all.
Okay, because I want everyone to answer the questions truthfully of themselves, and if you have if your answer to 2 of the above questions is yes, I just ask you to question yourself that you may be in an abusive relationship. Okay. So the first one is, does your husband or boyfriend act controlling, putting you down in front of other people? Does he act extremely jealous of others who pay attention to you, especially men? Does he control your finance and behavior, even with whom you socialize? Or does he act violently, losing his temper, striking or breaking objects? Does he make you feel uncomfortable, uneasy, or afraid by using certain looks or gestures? Does he tell you that you are nothing and you can't make it alone or without him? Does he grab, push, pinch, shove, or hit you? Does he call or page you often during the day? Let's say 6 or 7 times a day, or just show up to simply check on you? Does he blame you for how he feels, or does or may do? Just like, say if he hits you, say something like, you made me do this to you. Does he pressure you sexually for practices with which you are uncomfortable? Does he make you feel as if there is no way out of the relationship? And does he use drugs or alcohol as an excuse or reason for hurting you? Okay, if you experience 2 or more of these incidents at the same time, I urge you to get help. Take a look at yourself, take a good look at the relationship, and think about
Okay. Also, too, I will also have these marked off when I edit the show. As you read them off, they will be bullet pointed, and they will definitely be on the show, as well as there's going to be a special section on my website. I do want to say this before I move on. We're authors. We're in the business of selling books, but we're also the purveyors of information. And this is very important information that we all need to learn. You may not be a victim, but you may know a victim. You may not be an abuser, but you may know an abuser. Everyone really needs to be listening and watching this interview. Just want to say that. Um, was this your last? Was this the? Was this your only bout with domestic violence?
Um, this was I would say that this is the the most um, intriguing. I was, and it often happens that you're in more than one relationship. I can say that I've been in two, but I got out of the second one because I was able to um, see the pattern and not get too far into it and get out of it. Um, and this is one thing that a lot of people don't realize, that you're there are things that may have happened to you, or things that that you're looking for. I like men with strong character, uh, but sometimes it can be looked at as domineering or controlling, and I have to. That's something that I have to look for in myself, and um, and the people that I choose to associate with. Um, Most people who are in domestic violence relationships, most women uh, tend to repeat the pattern. They get out of one abusive relationship, and they become a victim of another. So that is why counseling is so important. Um, Children who are in those relationships, who grow up in those relationships, also need counseling. And I can say that I've been able to navigate life, I guess, through counseling and through prayer, and obedience to God. However, I can't stress enough learning, uh, the different um, signs to look for, because it has uh, alleviated a lot of future, I guess you could say, violence and stress for me as well. Um, and a lot of the shelters, a lot of the domestic violence agencies that are out there provide free counseling to victims and to children, and also case management to help them live a violence-free life. So I highly recommend, if you don't stay in the shelter, at least um, get in touch. If you feel you're a victim, get in touch, get some help, get some counseling. It could mean the difference between life and death for you, literally.
But that is real talk. That is definitely real talk. Because I'm sorry, but I've had too many friends who've been victims. I know people who know of victims. I know of too many people. I mean, I know of just too many situations where this has occurred.
Hmm.
So,
And that's,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm just saying, yes, I understand.
Hmm.
And that's, that's unfortunate. And it's just that people don't realize how prevalent it really is.
Now, I want to also, before I move on, to tell you something.
Hmm.
There's really nothing wrong with a strong man, but the problem is there's a difference between taking the lead as opposed to being an abusive taskmaster.
Exactly.
And a lot of times that line gets crossed by the wrong men.
Hmm.
So you're gonna hear. I mean, it's gonna be a long time. It's gonna be a very long time because it's hard. I mean, it's really hard, and I say this all the time. I say this all the time. It's very hard to very hard to find a mate where you've been dealing with crap all of your life. And it also messes it up for the good men that come along because you don't know where they're coming from. But
Exactly. Exactly.
but it's not your fault, it's not their fault. It's the fault of the man who feel he could hurt you, who could dominate you. It's his fault. So, well, like I say, it makes me angry, but I'm learning to control my anger so I don't be the one going to jail and he's free to hurt you.
Yeah, and that's another thing. When I mean, friends and relatives, when they help out, they try. They you have to be careful as to how they're going to react and how um, and how you're going to react. The friends and family that see a victim going through this, um, and this has happened to me as well. When they help you get out of a relationship, like I told you, I kept going back. Once they help you get out of the relationship, and then they find that you go back, you tend to lose them. It's like, and then they're like, well, why help her? Because all she's going to do is go back. But I urge friends and family to hang in there because it takes the average woman somewhere between 4 and 7 times. She leaves 4 and 7 times before she leaves for good, provided she survives.
Okay.
So I would just say to be there, it's hard. And I understand being on the outside looking in is hard, but they have to be ready. They have to have their mind made up that they're never going back. They're not going to. I mean, it's like it's sort of like a druggie. They have to hit bottom. There is a time when they will get fed up to the point where, uh, I'm leaving for good. And that was one thing that I had to learn when I was a counselor at the shelter. And that was one thing that kept wearing me down, I guess, was because you would see the same faces come through the shelter time and time and time again. And that's something that is not uh, that's not addressed, that is not explained. The women, and I can only take it from a women's standpoint. Now, men are helped too. Men are abused too, and men are helped too through the shelter. They just can't stay in the shelters. The shelters are for women and children 14 and under.
Well, let me ask this:
Hmm.
if I'm a man being abused,
Hmm.
where can I go?
You would go through the same. You would go through the same procedures as a woman would. You would call the hotline. They would interview you, and we always, take a person at face value. Our first line of defense is to get you safe. Okay. Um, Usually, what shelters do, being that they can't bring a male over the age of 14 into the shelter system, what we do is have people who are willing to put up men, or a system of hotels and motels in the area that will take them in, and we will pay for a room for a specific period of time, so that they're out of their environment to get them safe, and we work with them in that instance.
Okay.
So there is there. I mean, even and it's very hard for a man to admit being abused by his wife or his partner,
Well, I had a
because of
conversation.
the stigma.
Yeah, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine actually last night about that, and he couldn't understand how a man can be abused. Well, one situation I know of where a man was abused, he can't hit her back
Right.
because actually she's threatening him. It's like, if you hit me back, I'll call the police and you'll be the one to go to jail.
That is correct.
And that's how she kept the abuse going. You
And
know.
that, unfortunately, is how they hold it over them. Because once, at least in South Carolina here, um, once the police arrive, uh, it doesn't matter whether it's the man or the woman. The one who is the most abused looking is the one who goes to the hospital. The other one is the one who goes to jail.
Hmm. And but see, that's why I often, well, my advice was, even if you have to walk away with a few scars, do not hit her. Because actually, what you just said is actually what I told him. Even if you're actually the one to walk away with a few more scars, so be it. Because when the police show up, the one with the scars will not be the one going to jail.
Hmm. Exactly. The one that is the most abused looking is the one that will is the they have to assess, and they can only assess from what they see and what they hear and what they witness.
Hmm. And I'm gonna say one more thing, and I'm only speaking to the brothers out there. If you think you're a punk because some woman beating up on you, you're not gonna hit her back. Don't worry about that. You're not. You're actually a strong, good ass man, because what you're doing is you're exhibiting what a man does. You can walk away. You can do whatever. If so abuse goes both ways. And for us as men, walking away will be the best.
It would. It really would. And believe it or not, those of us who work in the industry are pretty good at assessing uh, situations. We've had women who've come to the shelter stating that they're the victim, but we find out pretty quickly what's going on. And rather than have them take up room in a shelter for people who were legitimately abused, we find ways to expel them. So, and I mean, there are certain signs, and of course, I'm not going to give any of them away, but those of us who have worked in the who've worked in the field are very seldom fooled as far as that is. So, it's like I said, if you are a man and if you are abused, uh, please reach out shelters because the services are there for them as well. But like I said, many men do not want to, are ashamed, because they did not, I guess you could say, retaliate, or, a lot of them are ridiculed. It's like, well, how can a woman do that? And the women know this very well. The women who perpetuate that. And it's kind of uncanny, but in at least half of the cases, um, the woman in the military or is part of a police force, whereas the husband is not, or the partner is not.
Absolutely.
In those cases. So, so there is a correlation also with the career that a person chooses as to, the amount of, or the percentage of incidents where that occurs. So don't feel, that they're alone. And most shelters, at least the one that I worked for, it's a 24-hour crisis line and a 24-hour emergency shelter for victims of domestic violence, and services that shelters and domestic violence agencies provide is free. Legal counseling, adult and children's counseling, and case management, meaning that they will, what a case manager does, and that is what I did for the shelter, is assess a person's situation and kind of put them on a path to living abuse-free, such as like if a woman comes in, I've literally seen women come in with basically just clothes on their back. So, of course, our immediate need is to get them safe shelter. But also, do they need clothes? Do they need medical attention? In order to move forward, do they need to find a job? A lot of the ladies cannot stay at the same employment because the abuser knows where she lives. Knows where she works. Get the children. She has children that's with her. Get them registered in another school. Sometimes under assumed names, so that they can continue their education and live in a safe environment. If they need to relocate, let's say one of the things that an abuser does is remove the victim from their support system. They get them, they go against their family, they go against their friends, or they get them away. So a lot of times move them out of their home state.
One thing really amazes me about abusers, they have, they have balls to state big. They have bigger balls in the state of Texas. They will do whatever it is it takes to stalk. They're willing, they're not afraid of police. They're not afraid. They will go through any length to control, and that's always bothered me.
Yeah, and it's control. It's not love. I can't say that they may not have feelings for their
All that love is twisted.
victims, but they do not love them. It's
Yeah,
all about
exactly.
control.
That's not love at all, because that's sure is a twisted type of love. I'll just be honest with you, Michelle. I am I am straight anti-bully. I hate bullies. I can't stand them, and I tend to love it when they meet their match. And I tend, I just hate a bully mentality. Because I've seen it happen. You see bullies, They get their ass handed to them. Next thing you know, they feel disrespected. And I'm thinking, why do you feel disrespected? You know,
Exactly. When you've been dishing it out all these, all this time. Exactly. I
yeah.
understand you.
So I'm just straight anti-bully, which bothers which has been bothering me for years. So which is why I'm glad I'm able to talk to you and be able to get this out because, like I say, I've seen it happen. Quick story. Just outside of my complex, I was just simply coming home from
Mm-hmm.
work, and a woman was being dragged by her boyfriend. And I called a cab home, so the cab driver and I grabbed the lady. He called the police. We were by my apartment, so I went in and got a towel for her. Her boyfriend ran, and he did wrong because he went to the apartment to hide because I had to go get him for the police.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, long story short, he didn't. Well, he claimed he was mad because they got into an argument and she refused to get in the car. Well, I don't. And personally, to me, you don't. I mean, don't explain it to me. I don't care. I don't give a damn. I saw you dragging a woman. Um, my thing is, no matter whether she was being unreasonable or not, your reaction is to drive off and catch her dragging a little bit. No. So, but like I say, that's just me. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, no,
I
no.
just want to tell you that.
I appreciate, I appreciate the efforts of brothers like you who, who aren't afraid of stepping in, to help, to help someone in need. There are too many of us out here who, I guess because they don't know what to do, um, but if you see that someone needs help, don't be afraid, to, to step in. Because what I've found is that they're really cowards.
Very much so.
They really are cowards. And I've pretty much, um, from working at the shelter, they more or less have the same personality. They just come in different packages.
Well, can I tell you something funny, real fast? And this is just my theory. Um, because like I said, this is my first encounter with a man who feels he can have his way with a woman. My theory is a lot of these guys' reflexes are very slow because and what I mean, and the reason for that is they're used to targets who won't fight back.
Yes.
Because when boxers box, they're boxing against an opponent that is trying to hit them back. But if
Mm-hmm.
all you're doing is hitting the punch clown all your life, you don't really have a target.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Look, I'm just letting expound, on what on what you've seen, on what you've experienced, because you're right. That is what it is. They prey on those of us who are vulnerable, who won't, fight back, who have low self-esteem, which was, my case. Um, and you'll find that most women who are in legitimate abusive relationships tend to have low self-esteem for whatever reason, um, or else they would not be able to get the kind of hold that they can on that woman. And it's the same for a man. Really, he has a low self-esteem about himself a lot of times when he allows his abuser to take over. But it's like he has to be careful because the laws, when laws written, more or less are thrown against him and are for the women and children, because 85% of domestic violence victims are women and or children. One thing that I do want to get straight is that domestic violence is really an umbrella term for violence that occurs at home, because child abuse is also domestic violence. 60% of children who live in a home where there is spousal abuse are also abused. So we have to look at that. And there is an element now of elder abuse, where the children or grandchildren of seniors, elders, are abused for their money and or their property.
Absolutely.
And that is unfortunately something that is just now coming to the limelight, that a lot of people don't realize. There are many seniors who feel, who are abused, who can't defend themselves, who feel that they no longer have control of their money or their property, because their children or their grandchildren overrun them.
I also want to go on bringing up money. I also want to bring up another part of domestic abuse. Too, there is a such thing as financial abuse of your spouse. If I'm the only breadwinner, I can exhibit that as control, because I control the money. If I control the money, I then for control what you spend, what food you buy, what you wear, and which again is still wrong.
Oh yes, that is a means of abuse. Just like I mentioned in my in the questionnaire. They it's like, and a lot of times the woman is the one. They may both be working, but she has to give up her paycheck to him, and he is the one who decides, whether or not she can have any money, how it's to be spent, and things like that, rather than it be a joint decision or whatever. And in a way, I was a victim of that too. So it's very it goes very deep. It goes very deep. Um, any type of control, like acting, menacing in order to control you, uh, is abuse. It's abusive. It
Absolutely.
has nothing to do with love.
No. In
It has
fact,
nothing
I'm
to do with love.
right. And one more thing I want to say, and I'm gonna let you say one more thing before we move on. I'm going to speak to the women for a second. I'm not going to mention anything specific, but I will say this. It doesn't matter who gets in whose face about what. If the man reacts by hitting you, he's wrong. I know a lot of our sisters want to say, "Oh, sister girl didn't want to get in his face. It wouldn't have happened," or if she would have done this, or no one. I will repeat, no adult has a right to put their hands on another adult.
Amen.
And I'm just going to say that plain and simple.
Amen. If someone has to put their hands on you to control you or to make you do something, you are in an abusive relationship. You are. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to move on. I want to ask, at what point did the healing start, and how did that turn into a writing career?
Hmm. Funny you should say that. When I was going through my abuse is when I actually began writing. Um, in order to escape, and I believe in a way to alert certain people what was going on. Because I remember um, one of my first little short stories that I wrote had to do with being in an abusive situation, and I used to, pass my little stories around at work just to get some feedback and some ideas. I had started um, because I was feeling so low and so badly about myself. A friend of mine, I remember having a lunch with them. Then they suggested that I start journaling so that I get some of my frustrations out. Um, and that's what I did. I started doing that. Um, and in that journaling turned, basically into a fantasies, into little short stories about things that bothered me. Domestic violence, of course, being top of the list, and also wrote little stories about homeless, about uh, about the AIDS epidemic that was going around at that time. This was more than, I'd say, more than 20 years ago uh, when I began writing. And I even uh, submitted a story to Essence. They have the Gertrude Johnson writing contest, and it got a little honorable mention, so that kind of like egged me on. And I had dreams at that point of being a writer. So, I would write, little stories, and I would, write query letters and, try to get them posted printed in magazines, but it was never, of course, there was always something wrong. There was never accepted. Here I am, some writer out of left field, trying to get, something published. So, after a while, I stopped submitting, but I just kept writing because it was a relief for me. Um, you know, being in that being in that situation. Um, and I would say that doing that also gave me the, I guess, gave me the courage and, of course, that little still small voice in my head that came that morning. All of that culminated in me getting out. And it took me a minute to realize that, even though I was scared to death of him, and I really was, I was scared to death of him, I left more so because I could see the handwriting on the wall. It was going to be either him or the only way I was going to get out would be either to just leave all of a sudden, or do something drastic, because Jazz hurt him or kill him to get away. And I just chose to just on the spur of the moment, just leave, not say anything to anyone, just make the decision. I got to get out of here and take a calculated risk and leave.
Did you
And I left New York and I came down to South Carolina where I am, and I've been here ever since.
did you have your children at this time?
Fortunately, that particular incident, I did not have children at that point.
Thank
So
God.
it made it a little bit easier. But I subsequently got into a domestic relationship that I told you that was short-lived afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I recognized what it was, and got out of it so that my children would not have to grow up in that type of environment. Their father is also an abusive alcoholic. So it was, when he wasn't drinking, he was a beautiful person. But the minute he started in on his with his alcohol, that it turned into a totally different person. And when I recognized that, I got out of that one.
Hmm.
So, which is why I say, a lot of us are attracted to certain things, which is, and it was the counseling that made me see, and the little things like the questionnaire that I mentioned earlier, that they from having to have my daughters, because I have 3 girls, grow up in that environment.
Hmm. No, at what point did you go from victim to advocate against domestic violence?
At what point? During a period of unemployment, I went to a temporary agent because being down in, they didn't have the career path that I was on down here in South Carolina that I was on up in New York City, apparently. So, yeah, it was a very, very drastic change. So I went through, I worked temp a lot in order to support me and my family. And one of those temp jobs was as a receptionist at the shelter. And I worked at the shelter for, I would say, as a temp for about 5, 6 months, and they brought me on permanent. And when they like I said, I was a receptionist. I was basically at the front door, and doing the mail and, secretarial backup, things of that nature. And even though I was, I became very involved in the lives of the people, in the shelter, and I would, visit them often and talk to them and counsel them. And I was eventually brought on as a permanent employee and went through training and certification as a counselor myself. And after about a year being there permanent, I was offered a position as a case manager because I was able to relate so well to the women in the shelter as the victims. So that's how all of that happened.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Well,
yeah, in a way, I felt like I was giving back, and I also wanted to hold myself up as an example. Whereas, if I can make it, so can you.
right. Okay. Well, switching gears one more time, I want to ask first what's in the future for Safe Haven Publications.
Okay, what's in the future? Well, like I said, right now, I'm working full time for our telephone company, our local telephone company. So I want to be able to give that job up and dedicate myself full time to to the company. I'm hoping to be able to do that within the next year or so. And where do I want to take the company? I really want to, reach out to those authors who know or have an idea of what it is that they need in order to succeed in being succeed in their quest of being a published author. Safe Haven provides, let's say, full services. I mean, just taking a manuscript, editing it, getting it copyrighted, um, putting it in book form, and we have several channels that we use in order to distribute the book as well. We put it on Amazon, we put it on Barnes and Noble, and Walmart.com, Target. And we also, I have a internet radio program called Author Speak, which is broadcast every Sunday from 9 to 10:30 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. We may be moving over to One Essence Radio very soon, but right now we're on Blog Talk, www.blogtalkradio.com/authors. And we've been broadcasting ever since August of 2007. So, just visit us every Sunday.
And you can check out our show every Sunday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next, I'll bring you an interview with the One Essence, Vice President of Safe Haven Publications, and also an author who had to struggle through abuse to become a successful author.
If your son or daughter is the victim of domestic abuse or know of anyone suffering from teen dating violence, please call the National Teen Dating Abuse Hotline at 1-866-331-9474. One call can make a difference because teen dating violence is real. July is Take a Stand Against Domestic Violence in Literature Month. Remember, one call is all it takes.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner. Here is our interview with the
Um,
woman.
the one essence simply put means woman. And when I started writing many, many years ago, because of my day job, I knew I couldn't publish anything under my real name until I retired. So I had to come up with a pen name. And I really thought long and hard what I wanted. I wanted something that meant something, but I wanted to be short and simple. So the one essence is the word it simply means woman, and because woman was the last being that the Lord created when He made this world. And women seem to be the cornerstone of everything that happens in this world, good or bad. From the apple to, the first lady now. So the one essence simply means the one essence that completed God's world, which was a woman.
I love that. I really love that.
Thank you.
Well, it's a beautiful name to me, so I love that. Well, I've been to your website. You have a beautiful website, by the way. And I don't know who that pretty woman is on that picture, but she reminds me a lot of you.
Oh, that won't be me. Thank you.
Can you tell me about your poetry series, Memoirs of an Ordinary Woman?
Well, Memoirs of an Ordinary Woman is not a poetry series. It's a series of short stories.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And they came about simply because I wanted to tell the ordinary woman's story. Inside of every ordinary woman, there is an extraordinary being. And if you stop the average woman sitting on the bus stop, or sitting in church for that matter, that you've never taken the time to give it up, talking to them, you'll find that we all have a story. And each individual story is extraordinary in their own right. And it came to light, that idea came to me when I was watching the news one day about the serial killer in Ohio who murdered 21 African-American poor women. And these women went unnoticed until someone went into their house and discovered these bodies. And you think, why are these women, why were they unnoticed? Why didn't anyone know they were missing? What did they they were missing? But because they had some kind of addiction or social issue, either homeless or drug addiction, alcohol addiction, they were not important to society. So we forgot about them and they became victims of this man. But then each and every one of those women who was murdered had extraordinary tales of survival until they met this man. So I decided I wanted to tell the ordinary woman's story. So we as a society could stop believing ordinary women. We don't have money, we don't have status, but we have lives that makes us important. That alone makes us important. So we could stop disregarding them.
You know, that also crushes a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions about the man and the woman as well.
Really? How?
Oh.
How?
Say it again?
I said, really, how?
Well, a lot of things is if you tell it from your point of view, it crushes what a lot of people think as far as they learn your experiences.
Right.
Because a lot of people speak from just their experiences and they think their experiences is all there is.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. That comes to me, our society has become so self-centered. And that is one of the errors that has made society so dysfunctional. Because we no longer care about what our relatives are doing, just our individual households. And then, we don't care what goes on in the neighbor's house. That's being nosy or snitching or whatever, something negative. We don't care if their children are eating. We just care if our kids are eating. And yes, we should be concerned about our family. But you should also be concerned with the child next door to you who, looks really hungry. So I think that self-centeredness is, the downfall of our society and our community, black community as a whole. It's not the way it started off being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. On to my next question. You're the vice president of Safe Haven Publishing. What brought you to the company?
Well, I have known the CEO, Michelle Green, for a little, about 2, 3 years now. And I knew she had this publishing company, but she was unaware of the attributes that I had that I could bring to the company. So over the last year, our friendship has really grown, and we become really good, close friends and confidants. And she said, hey, there's a lot of things that you do for other authors as far as mentoring and helping them get started, self-publishing. Why don't you come along to Safe Haven and we can offer to authors at a very affordable price so that they're not caught into these debt traps and trying to get their work published? I said, sure. So that's the sum of it.
Well, I think that's a very good thing you guys are doing because it's definitely very hard out there for authors who are trying to get in.
It's very expensive. There's so many wonderful authors out there publishing everything from poetry to science fiction, and it's very expensive. And they don't have, a lot of times going into it, they don't have the knowledge to say, okay, I need this, I need that, I need this. So all they need is just direction. We can help them at Safe Haven. If all they need is publicity, we can help them. If they need a book cover, we can help them without draining their bank account. If they need a website built, we can help them without draining their bank account. Most of our general features at that company, we offer for less than $100. And some, they're like $25 an hour.
See, that's very good. In fact, I can actually really recommend your company to a lot of people because a lot of people. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, no, that's wonderful. We'll take it.
Well, see, with so much going on, and so many other, and so much going on, and a lot of people not having a lot of money, and they really have a project they really believe in. That's really great.
Thank you. And I've been in that spot where, you enter into a contract in 7 years, you have to worry about royalties being split. But we don't do that. All we ask is that if you publish with us, that you donate a 30% of your royalties to the domestic violence shelter. But if you don't have to publish with us to use our contract services. If you just need a book cover, we'll help you with that. If you just need flyers and bookmarks, we'll help you with that too. If you need a book trailer, we'll help you with that. We can offer you the individual services. We don't have to offer you the publishing services.
Well, I think it all sounds fair to me, so I just think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, now I want to switch gears into something a little bit more serious. I want to talk about you are a survivor of domestic violence.
Yes, sir.
And if you do feel uncomfortable about anything I'm going to ask you, you don't have to answer.
Thank you.
But first, I need to ask, how old were you when you first started suffering abuse, and what was the first form of abuse you suffered?
Well, I think I was about 17 years old. My ex-husband and I had just started dating. And he became angry with me. We were teenagers. We just graduated high school. He became angry with me about something or another, and I distinctly remember him pushing me and pushing my head into a window. And that's where the cycle began. My friend, close girlfriend, was present when it happened, and of course she said no when he left. That's not acceptable. In this circumstances, that's not acceptable. So I guess it started as domestic violence when we were dating. I think there's a term for that now, but I don't remember what it is. And even then, I was in denial. It was my fault. I couldn't have made him mad, and it just escalated there. It went from a push to a shove to a slap to. I remember after our marriage, and I was just a few months pregnant with my daughter. I was getting pushed in the stomach and kicked in the back. And it escalated even before her birth to where that's where he was stomping me. He would knock me down and then he would stomp me. And even then, I made excuses for him.
What was the worst form of abuse you suffered?
Honestly, I think it was the physical abuse for me was the worst. The mental abuse, I can't say that it was worse than the physical abuse because the mental abuse anguish that I had inside from, broken noses, chipped teeth, bruises on my arms and legs that, it's 80 degrees outside and I'm wearing long sleeves and long pants, with entertaining family and friends and I'm covered from head to toe because, 2 hours earlier, I'd just been beaten. I think it was the physical part that I had the hardest dealing with because I think even to this day I still suffer physically from those beatings.
Well, you mentioned family members. How did your relationship with your family? How did it change, or how was it affected?
Well, I became very distant out of shame. Even though, there were certain family members who knew, it wasn't something I wanted to, I thought my family, at least, wanted to protect me. My grandmother wanted to send all 7 of her sons over to the house, my mom, even my grandmother threatened to get a baseball bat once when we were at a family reunion in Mississippi. My mom, very supportive, and it was hard for her, I know, we spoke about it afterwards. But she tried to, lean back and tell everyone, please just let her make her own decision. I want you to try to force her or on her. She's going to, draw away from us and we don't want that. So it was hard for them in the aspect that I did pull away from them, but not completely. I just didn't divulge anymore what was going on in my heart.
And how were your children affected?
Well, let's see. I would have to say 2 months before I decided to leave. The reason I left is because my 6-year-old son said, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a police officer so I can arrest Daddy. And my 2-year-old daughter said that she thought it was okay for us to fight because she knew we loved each other. And I realized then, if not for me, I had to leave because my children deserve better. And this is not the way I wanted them to think that families were supposed to be.
So this is the point where you decided to leave. Yeah, tell me exactly what happened the day you decided to leave.
Wow. Well, we have been fighting physically, for about a week or so. And we had a boat in the marina, and I said, I think I just need to go spend a couple days on the boat just to get my head together because I can't deal with it and I don't know what to do. And he agreed to it. And so I started packing my things, and I made sure the kids ate. I made sure everything was ready for the next day for school for him so he could drop them off at school. But I told him I really just needed some time for myself. But as I was leaving, he decided that I wasn't going to spend time at the boat. I was going to be with someone else, and he began to beat me so badly that I eventually just, crawled up on a chair and waited till he fell asleep. And then I went to the guest bedroom, and I got in the bed, and I said, I just got to make it through tonight, and I'll leave tomorrow. But mind you, I have to add that for years, I couldn't leave him, one, because I felt like I couldn't raise these kids on my salary by myself, and they deserve better. They didn't need to suffer financially. And 2, I honestly felt like he would change back to the person that I fell in love with. So all for at least 6 years, I remember praying nightly, Lord, just give me a sign I could leave, and I'll leave. Just give me a sign that shows he doesn't love me, and I'll leave. And every time that seemed to be forgotten during the beating and come back every time afterwards. And so this particular night, I went to the guest room, went to bed, and I was sleeping. But I woke up to his hands around my throat. And he just, the more I looked at him, the tighter he squeezed, and he looked me in my eyes and he said, I am not going to let you treat me like I treat you. And I felt my eyes bulging on my head, and I just said, Lord, I'm making through this night. I promise you I won't stay another night in this house. And I don't know why he stopped, but he stopped. And he went back into the master bedroom, and he went to sleep. And the next morning, I got the kids ready for school, dropped them off, everything like I normally do. But when he left for work, I called the office and told the secretary, you know what? If anyone calls me, I am in meetings all day, unavailable. I put his clothes and my clothes in garbage bags and threw them in my car, dropped the keys through the mail slot, and I left. It took him 3 days to find me, eventually, but I was at my mom's house by then.
I'm gonna ask you a real personal question, and only because I'm gonna make a point with another question. Where exactly did you work at the time you were married and suffered with the abuse? Or what was your profession? Not exactly where you worked, but what exactly did you do?
Legal assistant for the federal government.
So literally you made your own money, and so you wasn't really dependent upon his money.
No, that's not true.
Right.
At the time, I was really just starting, work. Before that, I've been a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making maybe $20,000 a year, where he was into, he was making maybe $150,000, $160,000 a year. We had rental properties. We had cars. I pretty much got a car every 6 months. We had boat in the marina. Lived in the best area of Milwaukee, and there was nothing financially that I wanted for. So I didn't think that I could provide for my children what they had.
Well, the reason I ask this question because I want everyone who hears this to know that not all abusive relationships are not all abusive relationships are more financially controlled.
Right. Well, no, it wasn't a fact that I didn't know that I could do it on my own. And but I did. I did just fine. Me and the 2 kids.
I think you did very well.
Thank you.
How many kids did you have, if you don't mind me asking?
I have 2 children. A daughter who's 23 now, and my son just turned 18.
So how does this experience affect your writing?
Well, now I don't know. I think I'm able to really be passionate about issues that touch and pull heartstrings in my writing. I think I'm able to give a very honest and open account of vulnerability, depending on what character it is.
All right. Well, at what point did you start writing?
I've been writing since I was a little bitty girl. I didn't really honestly think I could become a published author until after my divorce. It wasn't important. It was a hobby. It was because my husband felt like, okay, that's nice, but there was no encouragement to do anything other than occasionally his wife wrote nice poetry. So I didn't think, because he didn't think it was important, I didn't think it was important. But once I was out of that situation, I began to see how important it really was. It was a coping mechanism. But I've been writing for a really long time.
I'm going to ask you another personal question, and again, you don't have to answer any of these questions. But I am making a point with each question I'm asking. Are you currently seeing anyone now?
No.
And the reason I ask is because how does your past affect, in case you do want to see someone, how will it affect any future relationships?
Well, I think it helps me notice abuser signs a lot faster than if I had not been in an abusive situation for such a long period of time. I don't want to man in my presence that doesn't know how to control his temper. And that's just point blank. This is not acceptable. It's not acceptable for me to put it on him, and I won't accept yelling. It's like, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like a feeling of insecurity that comes around in a certain incident where I was dating at one time, and the person seemed to drink and get irrational at times. And I thought, like, you know what, this can turn into a volatile situation. I gotta break it off. So I think it helps in a lot of ways as far as noticing things that, and honestly making a decision on what I will and will not accept in my life.
Okay. Well, what advice do you want to give to any women that's in your position right now?
As in the position that I was in,
I'm sorry. Yeah, any woman that was in your position.
first and foremost, don't let finances be the reason that you stay in a abusive situation. There's no reason for you to stay in. You can do it alone. You can go to different shelters. There's financial aid that different shelters will provide for you. There is no reason for you to stay in abusive, be it children, be it finances, job security, whatever is being held over your head and holding you hostage, let it go. Because there's nothing that he gives you that you can't be for yourself eventually.
You know, I'm gonna make this point. I'm gonna say something, and I want you to make a point, whatever you want to say. God sees you through so many things in your life, and He tests you through so many things in life, and you survived. God don't make mistakes, nor God wants you to suffer more than you can bear, and He delivered you out of a bad situation.
Absolutely.
And through that, you're here talking to me, but not even just talking to me, you're talking to everybody that sees the show and knows that they don't have to be in the situation that they're in right now. So my next thing it's not even a question I'm asking. I want you to make any statement you want to make. Mm.
I honestly, with that statement, it brings me to the thought of predestined. I believe that my life has been predestined. I don't believe I've experienced anything that the Lord didn't know I would need. Any experience, bad or good, that I've gone through, He knew that I needed it for something that He had planned for me. Not saying, that it was a good situation to be in, but it helped mold me into the person that He wants me to be. And that's different for everybody. Life experience and predestiny is different for everybody. But I would have to say, I would be a totally different person had I not gone through that experience. I wouldn't be an author. I wouldn't have all of the creative skills that I have. I'd probably be a very, what we call, bougie person with my nose stuck in the air because we did have money. In a time when most black people in Milwaukee didn't have money. I think it was a character builder. And no matter how tragic it looked while I was in it, I'm still a better person for it today.
And with all that said, what's next for the One Essence?
Well, I am working on a novel that will be published through Safe Haven Publishing Company called Mamie's Mayhem. It's actually the third installment in the memoirs of the Ordinary Woman series. And in this story, we're telling, it's actually a continuation of the last story, Memoirs 2, but there was a character in that book that all who read it seemed to be attracted to immediately. And everyone said, it's a short story, we loved it, but tell us some more about Mamie. Why does she act the way she does? Why does she do and say the things she does? There's more to her, and we want to know. So now I'm going to finish up Mamie's Mayhem so everyone can know why Mamie acts the way she does.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for talking to me.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I really want to thank you because your message is actually pretty much so what people need to hear you and Michelle and just anyone who's gone or been through this. This is the story that needs to be told.
It's a very difficult thing to deal with when you're going through it. You feel so lost, you feel so alone. And even though you know other women are going through it, you feel like your situation is so unique that no one can help you. But there is help out there. There are those of us who have been through it that can help you get through it. But you have to reach out.
Can I ask a question of you? And this is just more of a personal one for me.
Okay.
I guess I'm the type of person, I see it, I want to react, but yet the thing about it, you always say, well, you react, you be the one going to jail. How can someone like me? I mean, I know that there are ways I can contribute to shelters and things like that. But if I see someone in that type of situation, I just want to react and say, "What the hell are you doing?" And I can do that. I can do that. But I'll sometimes, especially if I see a hit, and that's just how my mother raised me. I see a hit. I'm I'm going after his. How do I keep myself in check? In other words, was what I'm asking.
Well, I think with men like the abusive men, they need to see that another man is not going to accept it. They need to see that there are people and family members who witness this and are not going to accept it. The first thing my mom told my husband the first time she saw him abuse me is, what you do in the privacy of your own home is one thing. But what you do in front of me, I can act on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, mind you, you still have to understand that this female is very much, when they say battered woman syndrome, that is real. She's very much attached to this man if she's taking this abuse publicly.
Oh, I know.
But you as a man, or you as a bystander, have a right to not have to watch this. So the next time he may not beat her in front of you, he may show her respect and he may beat her at home, but at least she knows someone out there cares.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to tell him right from wrong.
But
In his face, not be afraid.
But see, I'll go further to say I don't have a right not to watch it, and I have a right not to let it happen either. Because there's no way I can walk past it like that's their business. I can't do that. I mean, that's just something, again, I wasn't raised to do that.
You're in the presence, but just knowing of it is totally different from watching it. I could not stand still if I saw a woman being abused in front of me. There's no way I'm not going to try to run and jump in between them. Knowing that I may risk her wrath, at least she's angry with me and he's angry with me, but he's not beating on her. So they can go home and sit and talk about me all they want, but at least he's not beating on her at that point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's a very difficult thing to not only be in an experience, but to watch happening to someone, especially someone you love, and even just a common person on the street, but especially someone you love. So you kind of got to not try to force them to leave, but let them know if they leave, you are there for them.
Right. Well, again, I want to thank you for your time and your words, and I really appreciate you, because me myself, I actually needed help for that, just to figure out, like, well, I'm not going to stand by and let it happen, but I'm going to do my best not to hurt him or put him in the hospital either, but he will learn not to touch another woman.
But at least not in front of you.
Exactly.
And I personally don't see anything wrong with that. I could be wrong as well as you, but I personally don't see anything wrong with that.
Those are some very powerful interviews. Now stay tuned next for our special technology corner, in which we will show you how to use technology in the fight against domestic violence.
Domestic violence is a powerful epidemic, but the cure for it is just as simple as dialing your phone. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAVE or if it's an immediate emergency, please call 911. It's time to take a stand against domestic violence. I'm not only a spokesperson, but I'm also a survivor. July is Take a Stand Against Domestic Violence in Literature Month, but we need to continue to stand up with the victims each and every day. It takes just one phone call.
In another special technology corner, I want to walk away from all the technology that can help us as better writers and authors. And I want to talk about how we can use simple technology like our laptops or our cell phones to aid in the fight against domestic violence. But instead of me just talking to you, I've also enlisted the aid of Michelle Green again. And she's going to tell you how technology can aid us
Okay,
in this
well,
fight.
I know of a couple of ways where we can, where we may be able to use technology in order to help. I do know of a program whereas there are certain stores and there are certain drop locations where if you have old cell phones hanging around your house, every so often, cell phone companies have these, I guess you'd say these upgrade programs, where you can get, new phones and whatnot. So you have your old phone around somewhere, rather than giving it, to your kids just to play around with or whatever. Um, Find out where you can donate that cell phone so that victims of domestic violence can get free cell phones through the shelters, through the police department, and whatever, that simply dial 911 or that can record where a victim can click it so that they can record um, what might be happening to them at that point in time. That's what some victims do if if the abuser is coming at them at a particular time. What they do is they turn it on. They call it's already pre-programmed to dial the police or the shelter, and they can actually hear and see what's going on in some instances if they have uh, the technology. Um, because a lot of these cell phones can record, um, uh, short amounts of video, and it can be used either to call for help or in the case where it's gone to court, those videos can be helpful as to what actually transpired as far as the abuse is concerned. So that's one way. Um, you can, let's say, if you're on a networking site such as Facebook or MySpace, you can, um, and you have lots of friends and whatnot. You can um, promote those agencies that help uh, domestic violence victims, especially if you know of one, or a few, or child abuse. The one that I recommend, of course, is the one that I worked for, the CODA, which stands for Citizens Opposed to Domestic Violence, and their website is CODA, C-O-D as in dog, A as in apple, Low Country, LOWCOUNTRY.org. Okay, CODALowcountry.org. or let me see, we have, we can talk about domestic violence on our, let's say post questions or post incidents that may have happened on Facebook. Don't let it be something that's so hush hush. And let people know that they can get help by calling 1-800-273-TALK, which is let me see, 1-800-273-8255. If they're in immediate danger, just tell them to dial 911, get the police there. But you can tell them to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 1-800-799-7233, or National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline. A lot of people don't realize that 1 in 5 teenage girls either has been in a domestic dating abusive relationship or know someone who's been in that type of relationship. Just get some of these things known. And the National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline is 1-866-331-9474. And another national website that people can go to for help and information on abuse is www.loveisrespect.org. So get some of these links and get them out there, and do whatever it is that you can, to help your fellow man. My company website is safehavenpubco.com. That's SAFEHAVENPUBCO.com. Anyone that is looking for confidential help that that needs to just talk with someone confidentially, email me at that website. Drop a note. I will do my best to get back to you within 24 hours. And try to get you to some local help, because the shelter that I was talking about, CODA, is part of a nationwide network of over 2,500 shelters across the country where people in abusive situations can get help. So you're not alone. And that's just it. We can just use technology in many different ways. Just get the word out.
I hope you enjoyed the Office Corner. And also, I hope you learned something. If you are a victim of domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or if you're a teenager and you're dealing with dating violence, you may call the National Teen Dating Abuse Hotline at 1-866-331-9474. And always, if it's an immediate emergency, please call 911. Thank you, and be blessed.